Happy Friday, everybody. It's Chamber Check-in time. And today I have owner of Taylor Made Visioneering with us. It's Mike Taylor. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Paul, how are you? Happy
I'm
to be
great.
here. Thank you for
Ah,
inviting me.
I'm so happy that you were able to carve out a little time. It's so great to see you and your wife last night at the business after hours at the trade show. And those events really help me get to know people. And when
Right.
you're face to face and talking it up and learning about their families, it's the best. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've always brought my wife to events like that. I think I'd shared with you earlier. She's my best salesperson. I bring her along, and people look at me in a different way after that. So I drag her everywhere I can go.
That's awesome. Well, hey, you're a relatively new chamber member, but you're already hitting the ground running. You presented at our one of our quarterly business education trainings on how to keep and retain your A team. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it was fun. I'm glad. I think it's a timely conversation. The groups that I work with right now, that's the biggest issue they have is finding talent and retaining talent. And so I think I hope it went over well.
It went well. So before we dive a little bit further, Mike, into tailor-made visioneering, your business, these chamber check-ins are really great ways to share our members' stories and the people behind them. And this whole series would not be possible without our sponsor, Delta Dental of Idaho. And as you know, Mike, Delta Dental provides best-in-class dental insurance benefits to Idahoans and businesses, and they've been doing it for over half a century. With that, I'm going to share a fun factoid from their Tooth Truth series. Here we go.
One of the benefits to employees in having a good dental plan is that 78% of people are more likely to go in for their preventive and restorative type services. Annual dental checkups is part of prevention. People that have dental benefits are 40% more likely to schedule their routine cleaning. Preventive is so important. It keeps your mouth healthy and it keeps your overall body healthy too.
Go use those preventive maintenance now before the end of the year. Well, thank you, Delta Dental. And Mike, I love to hear a little bit about the people's origin story and kind of your work, your history of work. So why don't we start out with that and share a little bit about you and your history of work?
Well, I think I've got an interesting story. So I grew up in the Texas Panhandle, and I ended up going to California to go to junior college. And while I was there the first semester, I kept seeing this young lady walk across the quad every day, and I thought, oh, I'd like to meet her one of these days. Well, one night we went into a restaurant, and sure enough, there she was. She was the hostess, and I ended up coming back the next night, Saturday night, and asking her out, for a date. And I said, but there's one caveat. I leave Wednesday morning to go to Idaho because I'm going to school at the University of Idaho in Moscow. And so we had a date. I think it was on Monday night. And I mean, I knew right then and there she was the one. And I got my car the next morning and drove to school and was up there for the first year. And I hate to say this, it's kind of embarrassing, but maybe not. I wrote her 90 love letters in 1 year.
Oh
And
my gosh,
they're
Mike.
sitting in 7 cigar boxes in my closet. But anyway,
A
I
true
ended up,
romantic.
I guess I was, and ended up going back down to California, asked her to marry me. I started a business in Southern California at the time just to pay my way through school. I thought I've got to find some way to, make it through school, and started a furniture installation business. And we got married a few months later. I was making about $300 a week. We got married. She was a waitress, so we were combining our monies together. And I had done a small project for an architect, really small project. And about a month later, she called and asked me to have lunch with her. So I showed up, we sat down, and this gentleman comes in, and he sits down and he introduces himself to me. His name was Kent Smith. And I love the guy to this day. And Kent sat down and he just started asking me questions. And I'm in this meeting going, well, who is this guy and what's he doing here? And we were there for, about an hour. And Kent stands up and says, Mike, I've got to take off, but it was really a pleasure to meet you. And he shook my hands and he goes, congratulations. And I said, for what? And for what? And he said, I'm going to hire your company, which was me and a friend. He goes, I'm going to hire your company to do all of the furniture installation for the new Toyota North American headquarters. That was 3,000 workstations.
Wow.
And it was all over a lunch. And I ended up, getting that contract. And so it went from me, I ended up having about 165 installers within about 3 years. And then a major manufacturer came in and wanted me to become a dealer. So I became a furniture dealer, and it just took off from there. I never finished school and tried to go back and get my degree, but I just didn't have time to do it. And it was all from that lunch. And
Wow.
Years and years later, probably 20 years later, Kent and I were on a airplane coming back from, I think, New York to open up a project for Toyota. And on the way back, I asked Kent, Kent, what was that lunch all about? And he said, I was interviewing you because I wanted to know your values. I wanted to know what made you tick. He said, because I knew what was ahead of us for Toyota. We were going to be opening up all these locations, the credit division, the Lexus division. And he goes, I wanted somebody that when they made a commitment to me, I knew that they wouldn't falter. And he said, he goes, I made the decision to go. And honestly, he made my business. If I'd have never had that lunch with Kent Smith, I have no idea where I'd be right now. And it was all over that lunch. So
wow, what a great story, Mike.
He was my mentor, and he taught me a lot of things about business and relationships and how the customer is so important. And years later, I was at an event for Toyota. They were doing an awards with a lot of their vendors for North America. And they had invited me to go there. And I'm just like this lowly furniture person. I mean, there were some very high profile vendors there. And they said, we're going to do something we haven't done before. We're going to give a Vendor of the Year award. And the VP of Toyota started speaking. And all of a sudden I heard my name and I thought, me? So he had me come up. And he called it the Silent Vendor Award.
Oh,
and he said, we're going to call this the Silent Vendor Award for this year. He goes, because of all the vendors we have, he goes, my team has always come to me saying, this vendor did this, and this vendor didn't make this. They didn't get this on time. They didn't do this. He goes, I never hear a word about Mike and his company. He goes, and nobody ever comes to me and tells me what's going on with them. And so he goes, we're going to call this the Silent Vendor Award. And I still have that somewhere in my office here.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's kind of my story. I retired 2 years ago, and finally convinced my wife to come up here to Idaho. We moved up here about 1.5 years ago. It took me 42 years to get her up here, but finally got her up here, and she's as happy as she can be here. I'm happy now, and it's been great. And I was on a Zoom call with a Bible study group that I still in touch with back in California. And one of those on there was a Pinnacle Business Guide. And he said, Mike, he goes, you ever thought about being a business coach? And I thought, I don't want to jump on that bandwagon. Everybody's trying to do coaching now. And he said, no, he goes, I think you should consider it. So he put me in touch with Greg Cleary, who's the founder of our organization. And Greg happened to have a Zoom call coming up the next week. And he said, Mike, why don't you jump on that? There'll probably be 4 or 5 other people on there. So I got on the Zoom call. And about halfway through the Zoom call, I thought, oh, this is not for me. It was a lot of younger men and younger women. They were fresh out of graduate school. And I thought they were asking questions that I just didn't feel like related to business. So I got off the call and Nancy said, what do you think? I said, this is not for me. I don't think I'm qualified. And about a week went by, and then Nancy said, I really think you should call Greg back. and he needs to know your entire life story. So I called Greg back, and Greg said, Mike, he goes, I'm so happy you called me back. He said, out of all the people on that call that day, there was one person I was hoping would call me back, and he goes, it was you. He goes, you have
That's
that
awesome.
real world experience. He goes, you've seen the wonderful aspects of owning a business. He goes, you've seen, when you fall into that crevice, and he goes, you were able to get yourself out of that. He goes, businesses want to work with someone that's been in their shoes, that's been on that side of the table. And he goes, and plus, he goes, probably the best attribute you have is, he goes, your hair is the right color. And so that was a little over a year ago. I've been a Pinnacle guide a little over a year now. And honestly, I wish I'd have, started this journey 15 years ago, but I wasn't ready 15 years ago. So it was perfect timing for me to really jump in and become a Pinnacle business guide. I love what I'm doing. I enjoy, helping businesses kind of navigate, climb that peak and navigate the crevices and get around those crevices. So it's been a joy for me. I just love what I'm doing.
So that's what Taylor Made Visioneering is all about. It's business guiding, coaching, and then Pinnacle, using the Pinnacle foundational curriculum, right? For lack of a better term.
Right. Yeah. The Pinnacle, it's a business operating system. And really what it is, it's what we do is we come in and we'll look at an organization, and we'll just help them create structure around their people, and making sure their people are working with a purpose, making sure the organization has a purpose, the people understand the purpose. It's a invigorating purpose. They want to be there. And then what we do is, then we work on putting together playbooks for the individuals, for the employees, so that everybody knows what's expected of them. It's kind of like you and I were talking earlier, it's kind of like going to a football game. If the coach has no playbook and everybody just runs on the field, well, nobody wins, and you don't know, you can't keep score. You don't
go get open. I'll hit you in the corner.
So we really work, to put the playbooks together for the organization, not only internally, but how they interface with the customers, sales process. And then what we do is we really work to increase the performance of the individuals, the organization. And then it's kind of like a flywheel. You've got people at the top, you've got purpose, playbooks, and performance. If you can get that flywheel where it just starts to spin, then the profits are going to follow. And what I like to say is, we like to help the organization create profit with a purpose. Profits are wonderful. You have to have profits to keep your business operating. But we really like to encourage organizations to have some purpose behind that profit. Use it in the community, use it to grow the community, use it to help the community. More importantly, even than that, is take care of your employees and take those profits, and they're your family. Treat them like family. If someone's in need, if there's an employee that is having to deal with elder care, help them out financially, give them time off with pay, give them that flex schedule where they can work with those, their loved ones. So we encourage companies to do that. And to me, it's important to me. That's how I treated my organization. And so Pinnacle, we really like profit with a purpose. That's kind of our motto.
In the background, Mike, you have the Pinnacle slogan, "The people on top of the mountain didn't fall there."
Right.
I really like that. And a lot of your website is your journey to the summit. And there's the sky's the limit. It's got type of a mountain climbing theme, which is maybe just explain that to me a little bit.
So kind of the way we look at it is, so when we're engaged with a client, we start off with what we call base camp. And those are 3 one-day sessions. And we do base camp day 1, 30 days later, base camp day 2, and 30 days later, base camp day 3. We kind of look at it as, when you go to climb Mount Everest, the team comes from all over the world, and they show up at Everest Base Camp 1, and you spend sometimes 6 to 8 to 10 weeks, or maybe even longer than that. And what you're doing there is you're making sure that everybody gets to the right place, but then you're looking around and you're getting to know your teammates, making sure that I want to make sure that if I'm in trouble, that woman over there or that man over there is going to have my back. If I start to slip, I want to make sure that I trust these people. So a lot of base camp, even on Everest, is not just about the climb. It's about making sure you have the right people you're going to climb with that you can trust. And so I look at myself as a pinnacle guide in two ways. When you go climb Everest, you have a Sherpa. And that Sherpa is the person that's been there, done that. He's been to the mountain and back. I've been to the mountain and back. On my way up to my mountain, I fell in a few crevices, so I think I know how to really kind of get around those crevices. And but then I also look at myself as the team doctor. I'm going to be there if anybody's sick, if anybody's not doing well. It's my job to look at them and help coach them up, get them healthier. And so I look at myself as also the team doctor, not the Sherpa.
That's awesome. There's a bit of triage that probably has to happen before you can climb.
Exactly. And then on the way up, as we take the pinnacle climb, you'll reach a peak, and we usually do this on quarterly meetings. We do 3 quarterlies a year, and we'll do also at the end of the year, beginning of the year, we'll do a 2-day offsite annual. And at that moment, what we encourage the businesses to do is just catch your breath. Let's look back where we came from. Let's look at that peak. We did a great job. Let's look at where we're headed. We've got another peak that we need to mount here soon, but also look up and kind of think bigger. It's like we did that. This is ahead of us. Let's think bigger as an organization so that, we want to do good for the community. Let's think bigger. And that's kind of what the pinnacle process is about, kind of in a nutshell.
I love it, Mike. Thank you for helping educate me and the listeners on what Pinnacle is all about. And I threw your website up here. It's taylormadevisioneering.com. If anybody's interested in looking at what Mike is bringing to the table, please feel free to call the chamber and we can connect you as well with Mike. But I want to make sure we didn't forget anything. We talked a lot about the journey to the summit, base camp. I love that analogy, climbing and summiting, and really looking back at where you've been and celebrating those wins, right? But then looking forward at the next peak. I love it. Is there anything else while I have you for the last couple of minutes that you'd like to educate me and the listeners on today?
I had something in mind earlier, but before we got on, my LinkedIn popped up, and there were a couple posts from 2 other Pinnacle guides, and they were so encouraging to me. It was 2 instances of, one was a fellow guide from San Diego. He was on an airplane, and the Wi-Fi wasn't working well, so he ended up engaging in a conversation sitting next to, with the person sitting next to him. And the quality of that engagement that he had with that person and what he found out about that person by having communication, it was the perfect post for me to read on a Friday afternoon. And there was a similar one about one of our other guides. And to me, it's just so nice for me to be in the middle of this community, the guide community that I'm in, because we're impacting lives. If I work with an organization here in the Treasure Valley, and one organization, I can impact 30 to 50 to 100 lives, because if I can impact that business and help them get to that profit with a purpose, I'm not just impacting that owner and that leadership team, I'm impacting that entire organization. And that to me that's why I'm a Pinnacle guide. I want to better the lives of the employees in the organization. And I just feel I'm fortunate that I landed on the top of the mountain. So
that's awesome. Mike, thank you so much for your investment in the chamber. Thank you so much for your time today to help share Taylor Made Visioneering with me and the listeners. I really look forward to our next conversation.
I do too. It was awesome. Thank you so much for doing this and allowing me to present my company and what I do. And I'm just so happy to be involved with the chamber. It was the best decision I made. So thank you.
All our pleasure. Thanks again. And hey, enjoy a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Paul.